For many years, I didn't have an identity as a biological mother. I kept Liza's birth and subsequent adoption very close within. I very rarely talked about it with many people. My parents knew about it, and their counselling after I came home was literally, well, that's over now. We don't need to talk about it. My siblings all knew about it. And my parents informed me that I was a fallen woman, and it was very unlikely that anyone else would want me. So I continued dating her father for quite a while, much to my parents' disgust. We even got engaged, though not long before my 18th birthday, I decided I wanted to be a teenager. I didn't care if no one would ever want me for the rest of my life. I just wanted to live. I wanted to leave it all behind. And so I went out and I started dating. I always told my boyfriends, not that I had that many before I met my husband, I always told them about it. I always felt that I wanted to be open and honest. And there was a little bit inside of me that when I think about it now, it was, well, if they can't accept that about me, well, then they're not the right person for me. And I understand that many biological mothers choose to keep it a secret, but I just knew that I couldn't live that lie. And there's no judgment against them at all in any way. Please don't take it that way. It's just that for me, I just didn't, I wanted to be open and honest. The secrecy of being in the unmarried mother's home. Like one of my grandmothers never even knew that I had been pregnant. And so it wasn't easy. And I just felt if I'm going to date someone and potentially who knows where it leads, I just want to be open and honest. But I did keep it a secret. The 70s and 80s and 90s, they were into shaming people even more so than now. And everyone was so judgmental. And yes, they are still now. But it was like everyone was trying to get this thing against you to bring you down, to find that core wound where they can bring you down, chop you down. It's so the Australian way, isn't it? Who do you think you are to stand tall? I'm going to find something that I can chop you down with. So it was kept a secret for a very long time. And then in Australia in the early 90s, the adoption laws changed and we were allowed, they were no longer as closed as what they were. And I could apply for her adoptive birth certificate and she was allowed to apply for her original birth certificate. And her original birth certificate is Liza Mary, which is such a beautiful name. It was such a shame that her adoptive parents didn't keep Liza Mary. I named her Liza after Liza Minnelli. Before I became pregnant, I had seen Cabaret, which was just amazing to me from the eyes of a 15-year-old, how I looked at her on stage, especially when she was on stage. And she was amazing. The way she would move, the grace, she was so talented. She was so strong, the things that she did. And she was so confident, everything that I wanted for Liza. Of course, when I saw that movie years later through adults' eyes, she was certainly all that on stage, but off stage, she was the most insecure woman you would ever meet. And I guess it was good that I never saw that as a 15-year-old because I really did love the name Liza. And Mary was after my paternal grandmother, who was amazing. She was there for me all the time, especially when I was in the home for those 5 months. Though I decided in 95 after a couple of things that happened. And one of them was that I read an article that many adoptees will never search for their birth parents because they feel they've been rejected once and they won't be rejected again. And it was approaching Kim's 22nd birthdays, and Kim is her adoptive name. And I was had been going to clairvoyance mediums since I was 21 and just to check in on her because I was always worried about her, especially as I grew and I became aware that I wanted to make sure that she was mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually safe, that nothing was happening to her. So I really wanted to check in on her. And every time I did, I'd go once or twice a year from the time I was 21 to make sure that she was okay. And they would always say, she'll contact you when she's 21. So I was waiting and it was fast approaching her 22nd and she hadn't contacted me. So I decided to reach out and find her adoptive birth certificate, which was very easy. I took all the necessary documentation, proof of who I was, to Sydney because I was living on the Gold Coast then. And within 6 weeks, I had her adoptive birth certificate. And one of the greatest shock of it was her mother was a month older than my mother, which really surprised me. She was 43 when she adopted her, and I was like, oh, so she's technically been raised by her grandmother. So that's when I took on the identity of being a biological mother. Over the years, I had, confided in trusted friends that what had happened. But then I sort of took it on and I started telling more people in, certain scenarios. But I owned it more. It was like, yes, there's a possibility that she can be in my life. Though I hadn't shared it with my 3 sons from my marriage. My husband had always known. He had just went, yeah, okay, sort of thing. He wasn't phased in any way, as most people, shouldn't be. Though over the years, I have had people going, what do you mean you had sex at this age? And I'm like, hey, wait on. I've been shamed by the nuns. You can't shame me over this. Seriously, what age were you when you had sex? And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right, sort of thing. But there can be a male-female thing in all of that. Totally understand what society is like now. Though what's really fascinating is I did never know when to tell my sons. Because what age is the right age? I still really don't know the right answer, especially as they're approaching the teenage years. The last thing I wanted to do was tell them about that they had a sister who they may or may not have in their life, and also give them a free get out of jail free card to have sex at any age, because that's what you were doing, Mum, so you can't tell me not to do it. Though eventually, of course, I did tell them, and that's when I really owned it. And because there was a possibility, because I had written a letter to Kimberly, in 1996, and she replied in 2001. So those 5 years, it was just after I received the letter that I decided to tell the boys. They were 16, the twins were 16, and the eldest was 20. And yeah, that's when I really became and took on the biological mother persona. But for many years, even though I took it on, my beliefs were that a biological mother is not really the mother. Yes, I am her mother, right? And she even calls me mum now, which is amazing. It's taken a long time. So what it is I had given away my rights. So I had also given away my rights to tell her what to do, to suggest, to give her advice, to be a mother. She was a grown 27-year-old woman who was a mother herself. And so I wasn't about to tell her how to do things. I hadn't been in her life for that 27 years where I would have earned the right to suggest and to be there for her. So I definitely took a back seat, and which I guess is part of our tumultuous years in our reunion relationship, is because I felt and I believed I didn't have the right to be there as a mother for her, and especially as a grandmother. One of our first misunderstandings was that when Kim replied to my letter 5 years later in the April of 2001, in the September of 2000, she had her first child, her daughter. And so when her first birthday was approaching and I knew about it and I knew when her birthday was, I sent her a present. And Kim phoned me and thanked me, but said, look, I don't want you to do that. So I just went, oh, okay. And because of my belief, I went, okay, she's clearly saying, I am not the grandmother. Do not act like the grandmother. Do not be there for the grandmother. And then, of course, it wasn't that was what she was saying. She was just being polite and saying, look, I don't want anything from you. Don't think I want anything from you. But she did actually love the present. And then she wondered why there was no more presents because, throughout the years, especially as she had her next couple of children. But it took us a long time to come to that understanding. So my identity as a biological mother has gone through a lot of different phases throughout the years because it was in denial for a long time. It was shamed for a long time. It was, I don't have the right to be this person. And then it's grown into, you are my mom. So, of course, I'm embracing that. And I'm so grateful that I am in her life and I can be her mum, and that I am the wise woman now through life experiences. Wouldn't it be great if we had the wisdom when we were young? Oh my God, how different would life be if we had the wisdom we have when we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond? So of course, that's what the journey is all about, is the experiences that create the wisdom. But now it's so amazing that I not only honor being a biological mother, and I tell everyone, and I am not shamed about it. And if people have issue with it, it's where they're at, and I know that. And if they want to go on, I will actually, as a life coach, I can gently guide them to actually go, so what is your issue around this? And why do you think you have a say in who I am and how I've lived my life? What gives you that power or right to even think so? So yeah, pity I didn't have that sort of wisdom when I was 16, isn't it? But no, now I have no issue with my biological mother identity.